All right, in this episode of Bare Knuckle Bowker, very excited to be talking to an individual who came off of quite the statement win at BKFC 63, a first round knockout over Will Albrecht. And yeah, huge win on August the 3rd, and great getting to chat a little bit with Josh Dyer on Bare Knuckle Bowker, who secured that victory. How are you doing there, Josh?
Hey, doing pretty good. Yeah, just over here peddling some shirts. Like I was saying before here, just trying to get rid of as many of these as possible. That way I can pay for the next training camp ahead of time. Just trying to stay active. I know Bare Knuckle likes to sit me on the sides a little bit after every performance. So just trying to make sure I'm all ready for the next one.
Yeah, and that kind of has been a bit of the story for you. And I mean, honestly, even a few fighters in BKFC, like there's a certain like start and stop kind of quality to it in a certain sense. Like, do you have any insights as to why that is in your particular circumstances or?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, this is sports all about views. My skills are definitely not reflective of how often I get to fight because I am definitely one of the best fighters in the world. But it's a business, and we're out here to sell pay-per-views. Bare knuckle just became legal in my state. It's hard to get a bunch of people behind you whenever you have to fly out to places like Daytona, Great Falls, Montana. Omaha, whenever we have to go so far, it's hard to keep that local base up. So my pay-per-view sales are quite a bit lower than some of these other guys. And from a business standpoint, for the price that it costs to pay me, if I'm not making those pay-per-view sales, it's difficult for them to make the decision to choose me whenever they could pick somebody else, regardless of their skills. Maybe they can sell 500,000 pay-per-views, which is going to generate them more money than what they pay out. So that's a good business decision for them. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you have all the best fighters in the world if they don't sell the pay-per-views and they run out of money paying you, they're going to fail anyway or lose to someone better. So I totally get it. That's why I'm over here. I'm trying to promote myself. I'm trying to get out here, peddle these shirts. I'm trying to make sure that I get my name out there, make bare knuckles with alive and well as I can out here in the Sioux Falls. That way I can stand a chance because once again, I mean I'm not exactly the ideal candidate. Yeah, I'm a great fighter, but not only do I not necessarily sell the most pay-per-view, I also beat their ticket sellers most of the time. So that's kind of like a double negative. So I get why they would sit me on the side, but I am grateful that they have reached out and given me the opportunity to come out and fight. And hopefully South Dakota, I can start becoming a little bit more valuable out here, give them some ROI on their investment.
Yeah, because I do feel like that's usually the case for a lot of the BKFC fighters in terms of like not being able to compete as much. Like, usually, what I've kind of noticed anecdotally is like they'll kind of like sit them on the sidelines so as to like have them in like the home state kind of shows and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like your situation is even a little different though, like getting you outside of the state. And it is kind of hard to have that like return on even like the live ticket kind of component and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that. At the end of the day, it's a business, man. They got to take care of themselves first. I get it. I run my own business. I totally understand how that goes. So I'm just, like I said, in order to play this game correctly, it's a pay-per-view world now. So I'm out here trying to do my thing, make big splashes in the ponds, fight on the big shows. Even if I don't get to fight very often, I want to make sure I'm on the shows that have the most viewers. That way I can start building that fan base properly.
Yeah, and I guess in kind of talking about that, like I felt like there was a certain amount that was made in the lead up to this last fight. I mean, just such a an iconic motorcycle rally out there in Sturgis, and a lot of people saying like it could be like outright the biggest live crowd they've ever done. Like, I mean, you've had a few BKFC fights now over the years for sure. Like, was there like a pronounced live different or a pronounced difference rather in like the live kind of dynamics, like the magnitude of the crowd and all?
Mm, let's see. I thought it was pretty cool because this was my crowd. Like whenever I showed up to this one, people were going crazy. I already sold a lot of pre-orders for my shirts. So, I mean, a lot of those people were my people. A lot of them were, just traveling States, but I mean, I brought a monstrous crowd to this, and they went crazy. It was amazing. We had a good time. We partied with Conor McGregor that night. I took care of all my people, and yeah, it was fantastic. But you know, I would say this was definitely the largest crowd that I've ever seen, largest I've ever fought in front of, and it could be the largest the BKFC's ever had, and potentially ever will have. I'm not trying to be the jinx, but this was a monstrous crowd. But next year I think we're potentially coming back to Sturgis. Hopefully they bring me back. I try to go out there, put on a big performance for my state. So, it's going to be the 85th, every 5 years, they have a huge, it's every 5 years. they have a way bigger one. So hopefully we can beat it next year. That's my goal. I don't like to stay stagnant. Progress is, very important. So I'm gonna see what we can come up with then.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned McGregor. I felt like one of the more, I guess, viral components of the fight, like even beyond your actual knockout, which was great, but like just his reaction to the knockout. And you talk about it being like a pay-per-view kind of world. Like I feel like that clip of, McGregor reacting to the big finish you secured there and stuff like that would probably pay dividends in that kind of regard, just like, I guess, upping the social media cachet, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we collaborated on a couple of reels together, and I want to say, we had I think like 1.2 million views in like 2 hours, like seven, throughout the rest of the day. So I mean, we're trying hard, like I'm not big into social media, and that's been one of my downfalls. So I'm trying to jump back into that. I've never been a big fan of like all of the attention and stuff. I just like to do me, show up, back it up. But that stuff might have worked in the past. It doesn't work anymore. So I gotta adapt a little bit. McGregor kind of showed us the way. If you want to make big money, become a superstar, you got to talk shit a little bit. You got to run your mouth. You got to back it up. You got to do some crazy stuff. And so, I try to always make sure when I go out there, I mean, I try to, have the coolest entrances. We had chainsaws this time going off from my biggest sponsor, Doll's Chainsaw Art. We had them, start off the chainsaws. We walked out, try to get the crowd all pumped up, throw out some shirts, knock them out quick. I'm a first round finisher. I like to go out there and, I like to entertain the crowd every second of every minute of every round. I want to make sure that if you're watching me, the entertainment factor is unmatched. This is the most exciting sport in the world, and I want to be the most exciting fighter in that sport and take that approach. Nothing sucks more than watching a boring fight. So I'm here to make sure that I make people enjoy themselves when they're watching.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely one of the more like action centric kind of fighters they've had. And I guess I'm kind of wondering what the feeling attached to this fight was because, I mean, like you said, your broader track record reflects a ton of early finishes. And I mean, there's some variables at play into why this was the case, but just felt like in the last few fights, just being that you'd had a couple of no contests, like, was there a certain, I guess, extra something attached to like having that like more defined, conclusive kind of result in this one and getting back to that kind of trend?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had some bad luck, the last couple fights, going out, fighting in Great Falls, Montana. One of the things that most people don't understand is, when you reach the upper levels of a sport, for some reason, Southpaws dominate those sports. They only represent 10% of the population, but they represent like 90% of championships. That Southpaw factor is quite a bit different. And, to put that into perspective, I'm a right-handed fighter, but out of my last 6, 7 opponents, all of them but one or two were southpaws. So I fight a lot of southpaw guys, and it's a mirrored stance. Like it's very hard to explain to people all the extra things you have to take into consideration. But one of the things that happens quite a bit is headbutts. Because of the way that you stand. When they throw their power hand and I throw my power hand, I lean left when I throw to slip their left, which is their power hand, and they lean right to slip my right, which is my power hand. So we both on opposite sides end up slipping the same direction, even though it's on opposite sides, and we headbutt quite a bit. So that was kind of unfortunate with Riggs. I feel like it was mostly his fault, but it doesn't matter. Like it was an accident and we clashed heads. I got the better end of it. And then with Jared Warren, that one was, I went out there and my goal is, as long as you finish the fight, you knock him out, you'll win the fight. That's what I was told. Like, hey, as long as you knock him out, you don't leave it in the ref's hands, you'll be good. I did hit him clean. I watched it about 2,000 times. Ended up filing, with the state, that it was a bad call, but that's just something that happens. So when I went into this fight here, I realized that I can't just go out there and knock a dude out and expect to win anymore. Like I have a spotlight on me now. Two no contests in a row looks really bad, and I knew that if I got another one, that I would most likely never get a call back again, regardless of whose fault it was. So instead of being my normal like go out there and knock him out with all the aggression and power in the world, I had to come with a more refined, back it up, let him come to me precision, one hit knockout and a perfectly placed knockout at that, to send a message to let people know that, hey, I am very controlled. My accuracy is the best. My footwork is the best. There's a lot of things that make me the best. I just use the aggression to hide the fact that I'm really good at other things too. I like to confuse people, but I realize that I can't necessarily do that once you earn this reputation. So yeah, I'm trying to be a more clean fighter, represent the sport that they want it to look clean, and I understand there's advantages with being aggressive and crazy because just like in Japan, chaos and opportunity have the same word. And that's something that I take into perspective. I create chaos, which creates opportunities for me, and it looks crazy to other people, but I practice like this, so I find the opportunities by taking you out of your element. But like I said, it's when you got a ref and everything has to be perfect, there's sometimes a little bit of issues that can pop up with that type of style. So yeah, this one was designed specifically to be the cleanest I've ever looked. And I didn't expect to get, the one drop, one hit knockout style, but it played out perfectly. And I'm really grateful for that.
It's kind of interesting. I guess this could theoretically be both of these things, but did you think that that approach was more mindful of, I guess, even like showcasing these extra dimensions to your game, like in as far as having that like more counter strike minded kind of thing, as opposed to like, I guess, constantly encroaching forward? Is it maybe more of like a, I guess, like pulling back the temperament kind of thing and showcasing the composure more on that level, or maybe a bit of both, even, like I said?
Um, Honestly, this is not the style that I would choose. I don't believe that it's my most uh to me, it's extremely effective to do what I just did, but this is what I'm best at. I'm better at fighting backwards than I've ever been fighting forwards. But I understand that if I only fight backwards, people will realize I'm good at that and then develop a strategy for it. So I try to convince people that I'm only good going forward to encourage them to try to push me onto my back foot so that they think they're, developing anti-plan to my style, which is the trap. I don't like coming out and exactly what uh, the trap is. Like I like to set a trap. And in this fight, I didn't get to. Like, I had to set a trap a different way, but the setup is my ultimate trap that I like to disguise with aggression. So I had to, like I said, it's the different approach that kind of revealed one of my strengths that I like to keep secret because I like to hide what I did to him. I don't necessarily like that this knockout got all the publicity that did because I am very good at that. I like to keep that secret. So when I fight a opponent that's quite a bit better, they're not ready for it. Well, now they're going to be ready for it. So I have to, come up with a new trap. I don't like my trap being the highlight of the show. That's just supposed to be one component that ensures my victory. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's just interesting to hear how much success you've had just with this approach that's ultimately not your primary approach, like you were saying. But there was something that you had said a bit ago that I kind of wanted to spotlight. Like you were talking about how chaos and opportunity are the same word in Japanese. Like there's that, like I wasn't even intending to ask this, but I guess it kind of sparked the thought just with you having said that. Like Rizin and BKFC obviously have that partnership, and there's been a few bare knuckle fights in Japan as of late. Like, is that an opportunity that you would like to potentially one day have, like have a BKFC fight under the Rizin banner in Japan?
Yeah. I mean, I like to everywhere, man. Like, I like different styles. I like learning things. Every time I fight someone, I learn something from them. And heading over to Asia, I mean, they've got a lot of different styles that are effective in their own right. And I'd love the opportunity to go over there. I intend on developing a style that'll crush everybody. And that's just based upon improvement. Everybody likes to improve a little bit, but I transform every fight. Like my last fight is designed to be a trap for the next fight, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But like I'm a much more cerebral fighter, I think, and I try to keep that quiet. I want people to think I'm a dumb brawler, but I believe that I am the most accurate striker in the sport. I think I have the best footwork. I think I have the best chin, and I think I'm one of the hardest punchers. And I think I have the highest fight IQ. I think that I'm a sleeper that most people don't give any credit for, and I only get better every fight. And the only thing that's going to slow me down is age. The natural things that I can't combat as effectively as another person's style. So yeah, I'd love to get over there and try some different things in different areas. I'd love using this as an opportunity to travel. This is very cool. I want to develop skills that allow me to travel, and this seems to be one of them. So yeah, that'd be very cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting. Like you talk about, I mean, you didn't verbatim say it like this, but the classic adage of like father time is undefeated. Like, does that also inform why you want to be so active relative to like what we were talking about before, where it's like you've been kind of like shelved a couple times throughout the BKFC tenure?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Um, my first fight really only pays for like my camp and my diet for the year and stuff. So I need to at least be fighting twice a year to be able to like make it financially worth it. Um, and also, yeah, I'm 33. If I was in MMA and the UFC, I'd be at the close to the end of my career. The only reason that I can last longer in bare knuckle is because the rounds are shorter. Like the cardio isn't as much of an aspect, and so I built a body and a style that's perfect for 2 minute rounds. So I I mean this guy's like Lorenzo Hunt, that are up there like age 40, still kicking ass. And like I don't necessarily want to try that because I just know that it's just an uphill battle. It gets harder and harder and harder and harder. And then, the level of damage you take goes up and up and up. I like to get in there and win clean. I didn't get touched this last fight, so like I like to if I can, I'd like to get in there and just win without taking any damage. I didn't get touched when I fought Jared Warren, for the world championship. I didn't even have a black eye after that fight. When I fought, Joe Riggs, all I had was a cut lip where he caught me once with a left. And then I go back, Dakota Cochran. I took one punch to the eye, had a little cut there, and I'm just like, I like taking little damage, in my style. You'd think that I'd get hit more by just like rushing in, but like I said, it's all very thought out. It's all got a reason for it. I got fast feet. It, I keep my eyes open. I look at the punches. I very rarely get hit. So if I do, I just make sure that I drop you. And that's another rule that I have. If you catch me with something good, I will drop you within 30 seconds. Like that's a problem that I create for people because I know it's a psychological game. So if you catch me with anything good, I know that's going to up your level of confidence. And I need to bring that shit right back down. So I'll always drop you right away. But yeah, I only got so many years left, and Father Time is undefeated, and cardio makes immortal out of all men. So I'm on a very short timeline. I need to get as many fights as I can. I got to get up there in the rankings. I want to get the big fights fast, and I'm resilient. I can fight every month. Like I don't get hurt much, so I can fight back to back. I could fight 8 times in a year. So that's kind of like where I'd like to be. And as long as my style stays one step ahead of everybody, that shouldn't be a problem.
And you had referenced your Jared Warren fight where you guys competed for the interim championship. Like, what are your thoughts on him? I guess, like, since cementing himself as the lineal champion, just because, I mean, you also had mentioned Lorenzo Hunt, but it seemed like he was prioritizing heavier weight categories. Like, what were your thoughts on Warren cementing himself as like the undisputed champion in the division since?
Um, it's great for him. Like he is good. He's got some good skills. His left cross is it's a breaker, man. Like the first time we fought when he caught me that left cross, that was the hardest punch I'd ever been hit with. And understand how hard he hits. I just have a chin blessed from the heavens, so like it doesn't wreck me, it breaks other people's faces, but I can take that damage and dish it back. So I just make sure that if I ever get caught, I wreck him harder. And that's kind of the way I've worked with Jared. Like I've developed a basically neutralizes every advantage that he has. Like the things that works for him don't necessarily work on me. And that's by design. He can't touch me with his left hand. It doesn't happen. I built a style specifically about not getting touched with that left hand, and he cannot touch me with it. So uh, I think that he deserves it. He's busted his ass in this sport, and he's he's crushed a lot of people. So yeah, I'm happy for him. I don't really think about him much. For me, it's kind of old news. I mean, I personally feel that, I've won every second of every minute of every round of every fight I've had with him. I've dropped him 5 times in 5 rounds across 2 fights. He's dropped me 0 times in 5 rounds. So I've 100% knockdown ratio per round. He's got 0% knockdown ratio per round. I've won every round. I mean, it's a perfect resume against him. I've outperformed him in every aspect: speed, strength, style, intelligence, hit rate, connection. I mean, it's not much. I don't spend much time thinking about Jared, so it's just kind of old news. I want bigger fights. Like I want Mike Perry. I want Yoel Romero. I want if Connor hops in, give me Connor. Like I'm the Southpaw Slayer. Like there's nobody that I've never lost to a Southpaw. I think that I have developed a kryptonite style against them, and I know that they dominate sports, which is great. Like I don't got to go beat all the Orthodox guys now. I just got to beat the Southpaws. So I'll let them beat all the other dudes. So I kind of have a little system set up. But yeah, dude, good for Jared. I'm glad he's the champion. He is very tough. I would say that he's earned it. I don't believe that he's 100% earned it, but I think that he's done enough to keep it warm for a little bit.
So the belt doesn't necessarily draw out your interest so much, like more just testing yourself against guys who have that like I guess like cachet or like bigger names and stuff like that that are kind of coming in. Like I mean, you mentioned Yoel Romero. That was a thought, or that was a fight rather I didn't even necessarily think about. But I mean, I feel like anyone that follows combat sports would find that to be a very exciting fight. So is those kind of like marquee minded matchups like of greater importance than say like capturing a championship at this juncture? Like maybe the title will just kind of come with time, but this is more in your immediate kind of purview, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. For a while, the title really meant something to me because I wanted to prove that I was the best in the world, and I thought that having the belt would mean that. Um, Now that I'm sitting at it, looking at it from the outside without a belt, I know that in my weight division currently, there's there's nobody that can beat me as long as something doesn't go terribly wrong in the fight. Like there's always bullshit that could happen, but I do look at myself as the best fighter in bare knuckle in the 185-pound division, um, with or without the belt. Like I believe that I've already beaten the belt holder twice. He has the belt. I don't think he's the best. I don't have the belt. I do think I'm. So I kind of proved it to myself. Like even though I didn't get to take the belt home, I felt that I had proven something. I mean, Lorenzo is the scariest dude ever. Like when he came down to 85, and fought everybody. I mean, it was. I mean, that's a truly horrifying fight. I mean, that dude is. I mean, he's got all the athletic freaking strength you could ever imagine. I mean, he he was the first dude that ever put me down ever. Like I don't think people understand this, but I've been fighting for 12 years. I've never even been dropped. And Lorenzo dropped me 5 times in one fight. And so I've never been dropped. So I'm just like that dude deserves the belt. If we're just talking about like you show up, you fight, that it's probably going to be him. So to me, I don't look at anybody as a challenge as far as skill goes, except for Lorenzo. Everybody else is just kind of like in the way a little bit. And I mean, Lorenzo gave me a PhD in ass whipping in 15 minutes. That was the hardest whooping I've ever taken in my life. You can combine all the damage of every fight I've ever had, and like I said, it's about 30, and it's never come close to the beating that I received from that dude in 5 rounds. So after that, I redefined myself. I built my style. I changed a lot of stuff. And I just don't see a lot of people as a threat anymore. I mean, like everybody's got a chance, but I mean, I designed a style to beat Lorenzo, and nobody else that I know can beat Lorenzo. So I'm like, that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and it is kind of an interesting sort of point because I guess like kind of creating a bit of a timeline. Like, I mean, Lorenzo obviously had contended for the heavyweight title there and sustained an injury in the fight, which was going to put him out for a bit anyway. But then those post fight drug tests from Knucklemania 4 kind of came out. So, I mean, even in saying that, it just creates like additional question marks as to when he might be able to get back out there to compete. But is that a rematch that you would want at some day, or would want someday rather? Because it seems like based on your wording, like you're talking about developing a style to beat Lorenzo. Like it seems like part of your approach, as much as you're trying to be the best bare knuckle fighter you can be, like it's mindful of at some point avenging that lone loss you've had in the sport.
Yeah, to me, that's the only fight that I'm afraid of, you know, and I don't have a problem admitting that because I lived it. Like that was a nightmare for me. When I went into that fight thinking I was going to wreck Lorenzo, like easy. And I not only did I sustain, injuries that took a year to heal, You know, I also hit him with some of my best shots, and I hit him really hard. People, a lot of times they can't see it, because I was really sneaky in how I landed those punches. He messaged me later and he told me, he was like, "Bro, you rocked the shit out of me." He's like, "I've never fought a white boy that could take that damage and hit that hard." He's like, "You had me hurt, but you didn't recognize it because I hid it from you." But he's like, that was a hard hit. And all that showed me was that his chin was better, than mine, and his power was better than mine. His athleticism was better. He was all around better than me. And it took me 5 rounds to finally accept that I wasn't going to win this fight. And that's why, I quit in round 5. I've never quit anything in my life, but the damage that I was sustaining at the rate, I realized that I knew I already was going to be out for a year with what I'd already received. I mean, I spent the night in the ER. I had brain damage from that fight. My jaw was dislocated. I was puking up blood from a body shot. He he wrecked me, dude. But I mean, my eyeball was bloodshot red. My whole eyeball was red like Kano for a whole month. I looked like that 28 Days Later movie where when your eyes turn blood red and you run around killing people and eating humans. I look like a vampire. And anyways, like I understood in that moment that I couldn't beat him currently, but that would have to be a comeback later moment if I decided to. And I thought about quitting. I mean, that was such a painful ass whooping that I thought about quitting. And it took me a year to build my new style. And even then, after I built it, I thought about not coming back because I'm like, it's just going to get me back to Lorenzo, because like who's going to beat him, except for like what maybe the Cuban assassin if they ever fight again, maybe, So after deciding that I wanted it, like I built a style that I thought I could beat him, and I was coming back, I knew eventually that was the fight that I was going to have to do. So yeah, long drawn out explanation, but yeah, that is a fight that I don't necessarily want, but it's like a fight that I kind of have to do if I win the belt and he's around. I don't know that I deserve that belt unless I can beat him. So that's that's all that I'm saying, really. I mean, to me, he's the best until I beat him. He's got to win over me. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the explanation because I remember you kind of getting into some of that information when we last spoke ahead of your Jared Warren rematch. Like the extent of the damage you sustained was, I mean, pretty remarkable in the context of, coming back. And I appreciate the transparency in talking about some of those mental battles, but I guess that's usually like what people talk about with fighters too. Like just they really, I guess, show that fighter spirit and their mettle when they're in those tough situations and how they kind of choose to respond to that and rebound from it. So, yeah, I mean, just seems like a great time to, be talking to you in your bare knuckle career. It seems like you have a ton of options ahead of you as we've kind of outlined, but I've taken up enough of your time, Josh. I do appreciate the time and getting to chop it up a bit, but figured I'd kind of put the ball in your court if maybe you had a final thought you were wanting to add as we're kind of wrapping up. I do appreciate the time, man.
Sure. No, I just want to say thank you for your patience. You do a lot of good stuff, man. I'm really grateful that you reached out to me. And I had a couple of conflicts with my schedule, and you stayed positive and you worked with me through it. And I'm really grateful for that. You didn't have to be. I fully expected you to be a little bit upset and come at me a little bit for my lifestyle at the moment, but you've been very respectful, and I appreciate you, man. You're always in the background. You're always knocking stuff out. You're making fighters' dreams come true, man. Like people like me, we can't do this without people like you. So I really appreciate all the hard work that you're putting in the scene, the back scenes, to ensure that we have a voice and that we can get out. So just want to give a big shout out to you. Thanks a lot, brother. Can't wait to talk to you again next time, and thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, no worries, man. I mean, kind of like I was saying before the call, I mean, the way I kind of look at it is like we managed to link up now. And I mean, like you said, you kind of have your own business on the go, even beyond what you're doing in BKFC. So yeah, just glad we could make it work, man. And I appreciate the sentiments. It was great getting to have you on Bare Knuckle Bowker after that big BKFC 63 win. And kind of like you're saying, look forward to having you on in the future. But until then, you enjoy the rest of your day. And again, to reiterate, thanks so much for the time, Josh.
It is my absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Take it easy.